Thanks for this kind introduction, and also thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. First of all, cheers everyone. Thanks for showing up today to really hear me out. I hope you can hear me properly. Can you?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's my story. It's my first attempt to talk about this. No sponsors, no nothing. This is just my most humble and honest opinion now. 4 years ago, I saw sex workers on the streets and I thought, this is inefficient. There needs to be a proper solution for this. This one thought, that woman standing there waiting for clients, really changed my life. This woman inspired me. I wanted to know more. Ever since everything that happened, I consider it my learning journey, on a professional level and on a private one. If anything, this company has been an inspiration to try every day to grow as a person and, learn. I have to admit something to you today to get started with. What fuels me and gives me energy through the years to build Ohlala is this. I was that person full of prejudices. I really have to admit this today. Admitting this is difficult to me, and I'm actually a bit embarrassed because, embarrassed about it because my opinion on the subject could have been better. But it's not only my fault. I think it's also due to a lack of misinformation. I wonder, how could this happen? Why are we living in this world of stigma and prejudice? How does it build up? It must have been something to do with misinformation, information asymmetry, and non-communication, which results in stigma. I didn't have the slightest idea of the scope of my thought looking at the woman on the streets waiting for her opportunity. It took me years to figure out the magnitude of the problem that goes beyond paid dating. It's about stigma surrounding sexuality in general and relationships. So much has been going wrong. And then I learned how little I knew and how opinionated I was. Especially me, the one that thought about herself to be well-educated. Knowledge is power, and I felt like I needed to form an opinion. So after my epiphany on the streets of Berlin, the next logical step was to kick off some research in the red light districts of Berlin and my hometown in Austria. Imagine this, the moment I announced to my parents in their living room in Austria, I'm gonna go to a whorehouse now tonight to figure out what goes, They were skeptical, but they trusted me anyway. That I will somehow figure it out, knowing me, the one who's always looking for answers. Having a business ethics background and one in moral philosophy, actually having received a scholarship to study in this field, I felt it was my duty and privilege to form an opinion properly. The only way to do this is to get all parties involved. On my mission to gather information or opinions, over the years, I talked to all kinds of people. I had truly intense conversations, some of which I remember thoroughly. I had to change how I view the world quite a couple of times. From politicians to porn stars, and of course sex workers, I talked to men and women. I talked to married people, unhappy in their marriage. To people who were scared to express their sexuality, especially women. I talked to many people who experienced violence, but I also talked to people that enjoy their sexuality and express it on their own terms. I had all sorts of talks, strange ones, such as I remember sitting even in the Bundestag in Germany talking with politicians whether or not gang rape parties should be forbidden by law. Intimate ones, I remember coffee talks with dominatrix about their job and how they create their sessions, about the things that people usually look for and their unfulfilled desires and dreams. Informative ones, with sex work advocates. I talk with them about their lobby work. That is basically, they just want to have the same rights as everyone else does. Funny ones, with porn stars talking about their most funny moments when they shoot a porn film. The bottom line is here. I know today how little I knew before, maybe even in general. Because I was wrong, now I know better. because I'm educated about this particular subject. Looking backwards, I realized about myself that I was one of those with many unjustified prejudices, a more or less uptight attitude and a rather boring sex life. So I can truly relate to anyone who has concerns or issues with this topic. But the only way we can fix this is that we talk with each other and not about each other. Not doing this fuels stigma. The question that arises here is, what to do now that I know better? I believe we have to come up with contemporary solutions for this. With this, I mean how we deal with our sexuality. We can do better than the status quo with regard to sexuality, dating in general, or even paid dating explicitly. And we sure need to do better with consent. The idea is to have a fulfilling life, or at least the most fulfilling life possible. If we have the chance to do so, we should. But when it comes to sex, it seems to be we are not giving our best efforts. This might sound very abstract at first, but bear with me for a second. I remember I wanted to change something, really change something, which resulted in the foundation of my first company, Pepper. My first attempt to make a difference. I remember the day Pepper went live. Shortly after, we went viral in the international media, and suddenly there were TV stations in front of my co-working space in Neukölln. Weeks later, Pepper was featured in The Economist. And I thought, what? So it's possible to have a greater impact and voice. Standing in front of our little co-working space in Neukölln, broke as I could possibly be, being on welfare to get the company off the ground. My company, or the idea of it being featured big time in The Economist, just blew my mind. I thought, if this is possible, so much more is possible, really. Looking backwards, Pepper was this very great first attempt to build a product in this space. It was a great inspiration to build Ohlala, a more forward-thinking, maybe progressive product. Basically, the main difference between those two products is the following. Pepper was a reflection of the status quo. As with Ohlala, the working hypothesis was the following. How should we deal with this in 10 years from now? So we incorporated feedback from users day one and drafted a whole new way of doing things. In short, we gave the user the power over their profile and the control who sees what in which point in time. Ohlala might be a rather small company right now. Circumstances required us to take it slow. However, we do have proof of concept now and a feasible business case. With some 500,000 processed date requests over the years, we have proof of data that we are onto something. And we're ready to grow. Considering the fact that Ohlala faces a near-death experience for more than a year, I'm happy things are progressing well right now. And now that we have done our homework on the business side of things, it's time to have an impact beyond borders. But to make this happen requires capital, and a lot of capital. And in the past, I've learned that raising significant amounts of capital in the VC industry is nearly impossible for Ohlala, due to whatever reason. Apparently, mostly claim because of the stigma associated with the topic as to why they cannot invest. Here we go, stigma again. So what can I do about it now? The last month, I've wrecked my mind and heart and dreamed a big dream. Top down, not bottom up. I wondered about the opportunities that come along with an initial coin offering for Ohlala, other than access to capital. I saw three big opportunities. One, for the product, engagement. The community, engage the community through a token economy, meaning have everybody have a stake in Ohlala. Use decentralized ledger technology to solve the most pressing problems we have related to the product. It concerns decreasing risks for people going on paid dates, as well as making the transaction safer. 3, build a platform, the Dating Education Foundation, to address the most pressing problems related to sexuality. This thought that is shaping into the launch of our Open Up campaign was intimidating at first. But it's necessary to have the desired impact we want to accomplish. What we need here is a comprehensive reform on how we deal with sex, and we want to do it. I'm not alone anymore. Some incredible people joined me on this mission, like Leo over there, former co-founder of Couchsurfing, who has an incredible experience in growing a transformative idea. I'm especially happy also that Thorsten is back on board to have an eye on the technical side of things again. Hey, Thorsten. We want to accomplish, what we want to accomplish is to understand human relationships. I mean, who doesn't want to improve their sex life, right? I know everyone can do this, and I assume you want to do this. We want to go further and investigate about education and re-education of sexuality and consent. Here's the 3 pillars of the foundation. 1, information. We want to provide the necessary information for you to form an opinion. Number 2, education. We want to educate about sexuality and consent. Number 3, inspiration. We want to inspire people to work on their sex lives. When it comes to all of our sex lives, it feels like we don't give our best efforts, but it requires work, and you have to want to do this. So what do you get in return for opening up? Being open is important because it means freedom, and that is very important in all relationships. Because if you won't let it happen, you're going to take away a bit of your own freedom. If anything, Ohlala helped me liberate from my own prejudices. And I wish this insight to anyone. I know it's possible to re-educate people. I'm the best example for this. We have an opportunity to change something here today if we're about to open up about this. Are you in? Not for me, but for your own sake. Thank you. And here we go. Let's get it rolling. So, should we do a Q&A, or what's your plan now?
Yes, thank you. So, for who cannot read it, it's ICO@ohlala.com.
.ohlala,
Didn't I say that? Yes. So, yes, we open this for Q&A. We have a mic. It would be great if you could wait until you get the mic to raise a question. Remembering the International Women's Day, there were a lot of questions. So, who would like to go first? It's a man. Last time it was only women asking questions.
Now that ICOs are much more common and more people either participated in some or have heard about it, I think the hurdle towards participating is much smaller. So I think it's a great idea. I was wondering if you ever considered crowdfunding strategy in the past, because this would have been maybe possible much earlier. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we have raised capital before with Ohlala. Last year I bought back the shares of investors. And I mean, I did at one point also consider crowdfunding, but there's only limited amount of capital that you can raise through a crowdfunding campaign. And so ICOs gives us the opportunity to have greater access to a bigger amount of capital to build bigger things.
Which size are we talking?
100 million.
Hi, my name is Ivan. The question about ICO as well. Many now consider ICO as something, as a fraud that people use as a nice word, as a hype word, and many doesn't have enough background to issue the token. What problems are you trying to solve with ICO that you're not able to solve with another technology, other than just collecting money with the way people are doing right now?
Yeah, so I've been watching the ICO market also intensely over the last year especially. The thing is, what's a little bit different about us, it's not that we come out with an idea and say, hey, ICO, we do it, but rather we have a company that's operating since 3.5 years. Actually, we did issue coins a year ago in Ohlala. Like, we have tried it on the product already, and we have proof of concept that we really have a Ohlala coin already working as of now. So we tried different validate thoughts before, and then decided to go for the ICO. I mean, what's interesting for us, especially that you can actually use the token on Ohlala basically already.
So
sorry?
other than technical possibility, what are the other
yeah,
reasons to do the ICO?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way for us, and this is one of the pillars that we really want to build community around it, and we want to give people the opportunity to have a stake in Ohlala. And this way, it's super cool for us to engage them in the whole development of the campaign, really build the momentum, engage the community, and build it from ground up like this. I mean, this is awesome.
Thank you.
So many questions. Sorry, I have so many questions, but okay, so still the business side of things. So, I mean, you actually are in a market where like so much money is flowing, right? One paid day can easily cost, I don't know, up to probably €1,000, even more, I don't know, like there's a lot of money involved. But so far, to my understanding, the platform Ohlala did only get, even with the messaging feature, like only maybe like the tiniest fraction of any money floating around. As you are looking into ICO and you want to like tell people, hey, buy into this, also because of the business opportunity, probably, not just the community, and the idea itself. Are you planning on changing anything about this? As in, are you do you have any new features in mind? Any stuff which will be coming, which gets the which basically takes more margin on any transaction which goes via Ohlala?
Yeah, I mean, we do have product ideas. Like, we want to stick to the core concept of Ohlala matching people to go on dates, paid dates. So this is going to be in the future also the core function. Of course, we're looking into like really doing or into the transaction and how we can possibly process it. This would take away a lot of hassle for the users. So this is certainly something we're working on actually.
I find that really hard to believe that no one has questions about this topic. Because 100 million sounds like a fantastically great number, how big, just a matter of interest, is the paid date in Germany or in Europe?
So we don't know how big it is yet. It could be a combination of all dating apps and the escort market. So the product is between those two markets, regular dating, conventional dating, and escort websites. So in between we see the product, and let's see how big this market actually gets. Like, I'm not a big fan of dropping any numbers because they're always relative. Like, you can check out any whatever number or reference. It's like, you know, if you're inventing a product for the future, how can I possibly drill it down to one number? But I assume it's pretty big.
Not talking about money, but about the impact. What impact do you, I mean, because you told us that initially your idea was to help sex workers.
Yeah.
How is your impact and your success on that not only financial?
How the impact on? I didn't get the question.
So did you talk to some of the girls? How did Ohlala change their lives?
Men and women,
guys, sorry.
sorry.
Did you talk to the people? How did it change their life?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking with people for 4 years about this. You have to understand, like, the idea actually came on the streets of Berlin. Initially, that made me do the research. And Pepper was a good solution for escorts. And then it evolved into Ohlala. Yeah? So we're with the product somewhere else, but not on the streets of Berlin anymore. That's important to understand. But of course, I'm politically active and supporting sex workers in their lobby work, and I'm really active in this field. Also, for me, it's really important. Like we always have people coming together, idea exchange. I always try. I mean, I said it to gather the opinions of all relevant stakeholders, and that, of course, still, even if it's paid dating, includes also sex workers.
So I was wondering, you said that the foundation is about education, about information, and the last time I was here I was watching the founder of Clue talking about the new platform that they have online with all this information about women's health, so much research that they've pulled together. What exactly do you plan to do in terms of information education, something in line with the platform that Clue has for sexual health, women's health? Or different type of initiatives?
Sounds interesting. Maybe we should team up with Clue then. Doesn't know yet. So what we're planning to do is, actually as of now, today our Medium post goes live. And our Medium post is the starting point of our discussion. I was not kidding when I said we really want to engage the community, and we're serious about this. And we want to invite everyone to help us shape this, where we have to investigate, which topics we should tackle. Like, I can make up my own mind, but I'd rather go for what's the interest of the community, which fields should we explore, make this really collaborative and not just me proposing something, you know? But we have to figure this out all along the way. And we're trying some stuff already, but more to be released soon. But, you know, if you sign up, then follow us and you'll be updated on the progress of our campaign.
Speak it out.
You're very quiet.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So, in France, I think it was last year, there was a debate of legalization, and some other authors were bringing up legalizing sex work in France, and the whole debate just went down. So I was wondering if you're saying that you're politically involved as well, like what kind of legal framework would you encourage for a sane ecosystem for sex workers? What is your input on this?
So,
opinion?
Yeah, so I think sex workers should have the same rights as anyone else. Then we would look at the New Zealand model, who successfully implemented this already. Like, this is for me the best model that has successfully been implemented in New Zealand.
Could you explain?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, not to deep dive into legal technical stuff, but they have like just the same rights as any other person too, like, you know, access to social security and stuff, and in case something happens, they can report this. So they are treated like not some persona to be segregated from the rest of society, but very included.
Thank you.
The biggest problem to set up, I'm actually trying to set up a similar, another platform, online platform, and the biggest problem is to start from the ground. And how did you solve that problem to bring your platform online, live, and make it work?
So our go-to-market strategy. So that's been a couple of years ago, but what we did actually, we developed a product, and then we announced it in the media on a special day, and the day, you know, obviously people were very interested in the product. We had a simple waiting list, and then we could like build the marketplace peu à peu. And this was actually our approach, and this worked actually well for all cities we went live in. Yeah. So the tricky thing about marketplaces, I hate the word in this context, but it's a technical term, is that you have enough people online that the product actually works. It's easier with list sites where you just click and you have your profile, but with Ohlala, you really have to have momentum. I don't know who of you knows the product, but shortly, this is the dynamic of Ohlala. Right now, a man sends out a dating request, and a woman gets paid for the date. Of course, in the context of this ICO, we want to make it available to anyone. women are looking to pay for a date, and also we're looking at the gay community right now if this is an opportunity to. So when you send out that dating request as a man, you would state time, budget, tendency, duration, start time of the date, and now it gets funny, expectations in free text. So that person really explicitly has to express what he or she's looking for. Here we're going to talk a lot about, at this point, about consent. So the man sends out the dating request, and then women can review this dating request. Like, no, we don't have any public profiles, meaning you have to get active on Ohlala in order to be seen potentially by people who are online. So the guy sends out the dating request, the woman sees the dating request, and she can check the profile, she can check the dating expectations, and if she finds the date interesting, she then shows her profile. And if he finds that profile interesting, he can enter into the chat. And to really make this work, you need a lot of users in order to have like a positive experience, so to say. And yeah, we did it with announcing a launch, having a waiting list, and building the platform up. This was our approach, and it worked.
Hi, I just wanted to tag on to the legal framework question from earlier. So in Germany, sex work is legalized. So my question was, as far as expanding the app into other jurisdictions, for example, in the US, sex work is criminal. How have you found expanding the app into places like that, and what kind of problems have you had?
So we are not into sex work. Ohlala is not Ohlala is an app for paid dates, you know. The thing is, our job is to connect and match users, but we do not know what's happening offline. Yeah? This is important to understand. Also, the users do not say any services they may or may not offer in their profile. It's very neutral. Picture, an indication of age, whether or not this is true. Just some couple of details and the data expectations on the guy side. So then we connect the users, and then they enter into a private chat. And I'm a firm believer of the right to privacy. Actually, this is a human right, Article 12. And I do not know, like our approach is going to be to this, I do not have to know explicitly what's taking place on that date. But it would be good in future, at least, you know, if people pay taxes for this, and give them the privacy, not to have to elaborate in detail what is going to take place. Because actually it doesn't matter, is it? As long as this meeting is safe for the users who get involved. Yeah? My opinion, I don't have to know what has been explicitly taking place. And we don't know right now on Ohlala. And I assume very likely I do not want to know in future explicitly what's taking place on any day.
So you haven't.
So we have been up and running in New York City too with this. You know, New York City is a legal tricky situation, but as we are a dating app and we don't know what's taking place on this date, we didn't run into any legal troubles.
Are you running in New York?
So, not right now, we withdrew, but that had different reasons, because I bought back the company last year, and we've been negotiating for over a year to buy it back, and that's why we withdrew from the New York market and wanted to get in dense scale. I would actually say this is a very smart approach, instead of scaling and trying to implement the business model on the fly.
One more question. These days, there are growing numbers of startups who operate in the so-called legally gray areas. That in one place they could be legal, in another place it could be illegal. For example, these startups, payday startups. You have the experience of raising venture money. Now you're doing ICO. What would you recommend for a startup that is operating in such an area for raising the capital?
For companies that
operate in such a gray area, legally gray area, for raising capital.
Yeah. So I think that any idea that's really transformative is in a gray area. You know what I mean? Look at Uber. So at one point, as an entrepreneur, you have to take risks, smart risks. But however, you can limit risks or you can decrease risks. But if you really want something transformative to be built, you have to take a little bit of risk. Be smart about it. I mean, our approach to this was that at least we got legal opinions on what to do and what not to do. And kind of like decreased risk on that front. But at the end of the day, we took it live in New York, and you never know what happens. Luckily, nothing happened that was negative. But hey, we took a lot of risk there, and it paid off for us, and it worked out well. But yeah, depends on that. Yeah, I mean, it's just very general. But
just from experience of raising money, when you talk to venture capitals, what would be your advice to those who talk to them? Should you like look for specific capital? Should you look for specific groups, or should you just find a specific pitch? Or what would be your advice?
I mean, it depends. Like, then we have to like talk a proper case, because it could be anything. Some VCs invest in gambling, some VCs invest in dating. Not all of them, certainly most of them don't. And then it depends how you want to, like, you have to think your fundraising strategy for your company actually all the way through. Yeah? It starts with angel investments. Like, honestly speaking, if I can turn back the time, or the next time around, maybe for when I'm done building Ohlala, maybe in 15 years, I would just like in small check that I really develop a product and have a business case, earn some money, just prove it. Yeah? And that's actually step one. And then if I have this figured out, I would look, I mean, it always depends on the situation, but then I would look for angels. I would look for angels that can help you in this particular field, like maybe they have domain expertise or can like bring in some value. And then, you know, you have to, I don't know what the whole fundraising is and the whole equity story of the company, what the exit case scenario is whatsoever, yeah? Do you need the VC money? What's the purpose? How big do you want to build it? Is there optional ways if you're in a gray area? I mean, especially ICO is now an interesting field to get a very open-minded community supporting you in your cause. So maybe that is something to look into. We have to see how this market develops, but that's an opportunity. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, I'm wondering, as you said, that you have a background in business ethics and that you want to raise the conversation about prostitution and you want to lift the stigma. Sex work, okay. I'm just wondering, now you kind of focus on the escort market, which is actually very different from the prostitution market, because also like I think that the people that work on the streets, they're actually kind of forced into this, and I don't think that in the foreseeable future they will have the chance to use your app. So your core mission initially, as I understood it, is very nice, but how do you think of implementing this, like actually raising the stigma of like sex work? Because I think like the escort market is not the problem, it's actually the forced sex workers, in my opinion. So how do you, as a company, because I understood that this is one of your core missions, how do you think of like going into this conversation? What do you bring to the table?
So first of all, I have to start with, I don't like the terms like in general, prostitution, escort.
I'm sorry, yeah.
No, exactly, that's exactly why we had like this idea of calling it paid dates. Because immediately when we talk, like for you, what you have in mind, what an escort is, a prostitute, a sex worker, is, I bet, very different from most, like any other person in this room. Like, you know, you have so many prejudices, this must be this one person, this is the persona, and everyone is like this, yeah? And that's where Ohlala is forward thinking, because we don't label people with any explicit terms. We don't call them prostitute escorts, because anyone can be a, trust me, and there's like a wide variety of people on Ohlala. Anyone can be an Ohlala user. And you might not know, maybe you have in your circle of friends someone who does go on paid dates sometimes, and they just are scared to talk about it. Long story short, we want to get rid of the terms that you just proposed. That's actually the thing. And I know that there's concerns in this market. When we talk about the sex work market and we look on the street prostitution, there is bad things happening. Yeah, that's true. And also within the community, you can discuss what you can do to make circumstances in general better. But that would lead into a very long discussion and also an ethical one. It's like, what does better mean? Who am I to judge in this situation? Like, I remember when I did research on the streets, I learned, for instance, that for them, a lot of people working on the streets, they create their own reality. Yeah? and they earn money and maybe have a relationship with someone who promotes their dates whatsoever. So you really needed to do a concise analysis and see if you should do something about it, and if yes, what to do about it. Like, there's no general answer for me right now, but also this could be something to be found out by the community too, not just me. But definitely, we may investigate in this field too.
May I ask a follow-up question? Sorry, I called this prostitution. Yeah,
No,
right.
you don't. I'm just.
No, you're right, because like this is me being part of the problem, obviously. But my question is still that I think this. Don't you think that the society's big stigma about sex work comes from actually what they're exposed to constantly? Hence, people working on the streets or working in whorehouses, and you said like you want to engage that, but do you have a precise plan on how you want to do that?
Yeah, so we want to open up like how we're going to build up our communication strategies that we in future will host fireside chats, and it will invite people and make this an open conversation. We will obviously have a YouTube channel where you can follow up on what we're up to with the Ohlala campaign. And and the first question was again?
That's fine. I was just wondering how you want to engage into the conversation with the actual, like, in my opinion, the actual problem that what people are exposed to, and that's hence creating their stigma for it.
Yeah, exactly. And the point of stigma is the root of stigma, also especially in this case, is I really think information asymmetry, like misinformation. I remember how poorly I was informed about this topic, but yet had such a strong opinion, knowing nothing about it. And this is actually where we really want to educate and really provide information. Have that YouTube channel, invite that sex worker, let her speak up, or let him speak up, and give them a voice to explain themselves with their own words. And this way they can express themselves. That would be, for instance, one initiative.
Okay.
I do have a question much more as a side note, because I really think it's interesting to understand, or the experience I have reading, that paid dates is much more like an organic and much more spontaneous and casual thing. Like, we have influencers who, they have their sugar daddies and sugar mamas, and they talk about it very openly. Like, the next generation is much more like casual about this. Like in New York or in big cities where life is expensive, there's many Muslim men complaining, oh, these girls are using Tinder only to get a free ride. They just expect me to buy them dinner and shower them with drinks, and then nothing happens. So for that, I would get an escort instead. There's like this conversation going on. And right now, I'm not sure if you spoke about this, but there is a crackdown in the US about websites. I'm not sure how the law is called, but any website that has sex in it is in trouble right now in the US. Yeah. And many are going to Mastodon and to Twitter, which is like a Twitter but for sex workers. So there's a lot going on in this space. I just want to know, Anya has questions, you have questions, anyone else? Okay, so we are going to continue with this.
What was it?
Hi, my question was about, you mentioned that Ohlala doesn't want to know what happens.
Not explicit. I don't have to know everything.
Okay, you don't have to know everything or all the details. But the one thing that you do want to do is ensure that the meeting is safe.
Yeah.
So currently, how do you ensure that? How do you help your users so that meeting?
I mean, yeah. So right now we have a little bit. It's at least a start. We have a little reputation system on Ohlala, so you can report users, you can give positive feedback and review it to spot black sheep. This was the first step to have really, like, the only way we can curate it when growing the company is that we really need the users to be active to give feedback on particular users. And then we look at the feedback, we evaluate the feedback, we have a little approach on how to do this. And then, if necessary, we take action and ban users from the platform if we do not find them appropriate or it doesn't find them that they fit into the community. And in future, what we're planning to do is really take, really create a risk profile about users and really investigate in this field what we can do also with new technology to decrease risk. Meaning, there's plenty of opportunity in this space, and that's where really. We're going to do a lot, especially But then again, you have to understand, like, my personal opinion on risk is also, I think by meeting online and then meeting offline actually decreases risk. It's my opinion, because people are very concerned about their online behavior, and if, you know, usually people know, like, they do their homework up front, exchange names and whatsoever. So compared to what if you meet a guy in a bar and you go home with him, yeah, not even a paid date, and you know nothing, not even the number, the name whatsoever. This is pretty unsafe too, right? And I think that any encounter could be unsafe. And just because it's Ohlala doesn't mean it's like, at least I can look back on 3.5 years where nothing really happened, like at least bad things that would have been reported to us. And this is actually a good sign.
Hi. So I have a question about your personal life now. Know what you think. So you used to work in investment banking, right? In Austria.
No, actually, this is not in Vienna, in Frankfurt.
Okay. Yeah. But nevertheless, so you were working in investment banking, and then...
Yes, I did that too.
Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. No. So I'm just wondering, at what point was... It's Pepper, right? Was the first thing that you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so at what point was Pepper at before you decided to kind of leave your... I'm assuming you left your job?
Yeah, so no, actually I was in investment banking, and then I took a year off. I was a bartender, I wrote a book. And then I didn't know what to do with my life, so I had two opportunities: being a personal assistant for a very, very wealthy guy, or take on that scholarship to study business ethics. And a little bit about myself: I love numbers and data, and I like to drill it down to one number. This is why I appreciate very much finance. I didn't like investment banking. And then I had the opportunity to study business ethics, and it was very interesting because ethics is all about talking and opinions, you know. You never get that final answer that is true or not. It's always a matter of perspective. So it was really interesting to study something very precise like finance business administration, and then go over and have something very abstract as my master's degree, business ethics. And so I came to Berlin, I studied business ethics. I worked as a research assistant at the institute. And shortly after graduation, again, I didn't know what to do with my life. And then really I thought, you know, I really saw this woman, and it just fascinated me how little I knew. And I just kicked off the research, and ever since I'm going. And yeah, I think it's the purpose that really drives me to change something, because the more I got going, the more I learned what's going on not right. And this really fuels me to keep going. So that's a little bit my background. I never planned to start a startup. I never attended any startup conference or meetup before. Like literally, I woke up that one day and said, I'm going to do a startup. I didn't even have a smartphone, so I didn't know anything about apps or web apps whatsoever. But I had the like intent to learn anything necessary to do this. Until today, I'm still learning a lot every day. Yeah, and it's fun. I like it.
Yeah, that's very impressive. I mean, to come from outside of the digital world right into a topic like that. I have a question. Do you see the other gender coming in as well? So do you have men offering paid dates? I'm sorry, I'm making this question.
No worries. But is it like, you mean men as in men getting like man and to men, or man to woman, like woman paying for a date, or what do you mean?
Either way.
Yeah.
Just so openly, because I think I had two thoughts listening to you. One was this one, and the other one to kind of like do your whole societal analysis and processing that you're doing while you do this. It has to equally be bounced off of both genders.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I think, is all the horror stories we know about prostitution and minors, or abuse, or drug abuse and all these things. So where do you, I mean, you're very happy. It's kind of like Tesla run very well for like 7-8 years, and now they have some serious car crashes, you know, because they're having millions and millions of kilometers. You'll encounter the same thing. Once you grow big enough, Uber had to reach a certain number until they had sexual harassment problems and stuff like that. So how are you drawing the lines or preparing for the abuse of your system?
Okay, so first of all, I have to explain why right now only men can pay for the date. This was really a very simple product decision with my first company. We made it accessible both ways, and it's a funny thing that happened. So when guys signed up on Pepper, they were overly excited. They said to me, like, when we built the product, what we did is actually any user that signed up had to go through a little interview on the phone with me, just to get an opinion and a feeling for it. This is how we started. And they were super excited to have sex and get paid. Best of both worlds, yeah? Now imagine this. Like, this is the male perspective. And suddenly, if a woman does the same, she's being victimized. Yeah? This is also a topic that we're going to tackle. Because I'm a firm believer as a woman, you can act from a position of power or being the victim, and I never chose to be the victim. So that's what we're going to work on. But coming back to your question, so it was just a product decision, and then we learned, like, we didn't have a single, like 4 years ago, we didn't have a single dating request from a woman paying to a man, because then we learned they had a little bit of a different approach to it. When women do this, they want to solve something significant for them. It takes them a little bit longer. They want to chat, talk on the phone. So we didn't have a single booking, and when we did Pepper, I thought, let's do one thing right without confusing the users, because what happened at Pepper is all the men were complaining they're not getting dates. Right? And so the product didn't work for them, they were frustrated, blah, blah, blah. With Ohlala, we said, well, the biggest part of the market is men paying for the date. Women, we go for that, and then we see how it goes. Yeah? And also, like, within a very short period, like, we're really working on this. For me, this is my personal we really want to make this accessible to anyone, and not just to this one case. And then when you say the struggle that comes along with scaling, you know, I've had the most fascinating challenges with this company the last 3 years. And, you know, I'll take them as they come. I don't know which challenges are about to be there, but I'm trying to just fix it, as I always do.
Do you have any safeguard system not to have minors offering their services on your platform?
I mean, this is how we're going to verify the user in future. It's going to be a topic right now. We at least, I mean, there's they have to. The user has to agree that he is older than 18 or 18 and older. When we have doubts, so what we do is we verify the profile pictures. We have FSK 16 pictures, like no naked pictures in the profile of Ohlala. And if we have serious doubts, we either don't let them on Ohlala, or we get some evidence that they're old enough to do this. Yeah? It works for now. We have to come up with a solution for this too. Yeah.
But you always stay digital. You never do a one-to-one reach out to a person?
What do you mean one-to-one reach out? Like that
that somebody comes to an office or registers with you personally or anything like that?
No, not yet. So we're really not getting involved, and also like public opinion is that I'm a pimp, right? I'm not a pimp, because exactly. Yeah.
You might end up doing it.
No, really, despite public opinion, I'm really not. Because the product works like this, you can sign up, but we're not getting involved at all. We don't tell the users to go online whatsoever. They really can be active when they want to. And we are not getting involved at all. We don't tell how many dates they have to buy whatsoever. Yeah? They can do everything on their own without getting involved. I think we can come up with a proper solution on how to verify the age of the user in the future, but it will not. Like, we have already in Germany more than 100,000 registrations. Yeah?
How much?
More than 100,000 users in Germany. Like, you know, this is the point reached where we can verify every person individually. And especially not if we scale. But we will look into this too, of course. Anything that makes it safer.
So I have another question. It's on the same topic, and I was going to ask if the question that the other girl at the start asked about impact, maybe to me that seems so. What are the goals that you have? Let's say we want to make this market violence-free. We want to make all of these things, and kind of how would you assess that? And my question was, for example, if you don't really know what's going on, as someone pointed out, do you know if there's violence? And for example, a lot of the problems is that nobody wants to actually report that, even if it's anonymously. Let's say, you know, you're reporting about a guy or a woman who's had like not that much to do with the platform. They go on one date, they hurt someone, and they know that there's only one person who could have reported them, you know, and you already met that person, they've seen what you look like, they know where you live, maybe even, and someone might come back. And also because you don't really have their identity, you don't know, so if you block a user, if they're going to come back to you in a different VPN or in a different form, and so are you planning at some point to actually verify identity, so you have to submit a copy of your passport or a copy of your ID or something like that? Or is that still going to be entirely anonymous?
I mean, it depends really on the users also. If, I mean, we do believe in the right to privacy and being anonymous, and all these problems that you just said would not be a problem if there was not stigma. It's like, as I said, why is it that women would not report any incident if they have been on a paid date? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think that's the case in any case. They're worried about retaliation. I don't think it's because of the stigma necessarily. I think in a lot of cases, women don't speak back or don't talk up because they think something worse will come to them.
What about men? Do you think that the same is for men true?
Could also happen. I think there's a lot of victimization or a lot of like really dangerous situations, especially maybe in the gay community, where a lot of men go through the same thing a lot of women do. I don't think it necessarily is just a stigma, actually. I think obviously if you change the stigma and there is no violence anymore, that would be amazing, but on the way there.
Yeah, and that's like where we're coming back to consent. Yeah? If people know what to agree upon and like based on mutual consent, then maybe this already eliminates some cases where bad things might happen, you know. A no is a no. And people have to understand that, have to be able to articulate this.
So it's probably going to continue anonymously, even if, for example...
No, how do we know? It's like, of course we're going to look into it, but like right now, imagine Ohlala is a playful dating community who is ready to pay for the experience. So far we can only report on stuff that has been happening so far. Like nothing really, like we have reporting system and sometimes they complain about the pictures or no, but nothing really serious. Yeah? The thing is about any case, like anything can happen any day to the company. It's a problem, like not that I do not consider what you just said, but I said, you know, it's a problem and it's a problem. We look into this and investigate once it gets a problem. But right now, if I look at the Ohlala user base, it hasn't been a problem so far. And once it's going to get one, like not when it's late, but once it's really going to, feels like it's going to become an issue, we're going to look into this and see what we can do, you know?
Do you have any system where you ask people after they've been using the website for a while, or how are your experiences so far? Is everything going well?
Yeah, so we do have community management. We actively are always seeking feedback, so anyone can address us, and some people are very eager to give feedback, which we really appreciate. We love it actually. And of course they can reach out to us, write us, give feedback on the app. There's multiple ways on how to, you know, make Ohlala better, and it's pretty cool, like people are active and do this.
Hi, you said before you started your business you have so much knowledge about the market. What was your biggest learning from like talking to the people on the streets?
On the streets?
Yeah.
I mean, learning in general. I was when I first I was so okay. Maybe the biggest, like I thought yes, it's sex workers on the street, and I remember I was the first time. I don't know if you know on Kurfürstenstraße there's like a sex shop called LSD, and I was like, and I was with two people, like two friends of mine, and I said, yeah, but how do you approach these people? You have to imagine, like at the beginning, it's like 4 years ago, was someone who said, I want to help. Yeah, help is also the wrong word in this context. And I remember that I walked up and said, hey, and I wanted to start a conversation, and then I learned she is not speaking German or English. And then I remember that we went to the sex shop and to talk to the people who work there. And then I learned that they sometimes, you know, get condoms from the sex shop and hang out there, maybe have a shower in between. It's fascinating that some of them see 20 clients a day and are not able to take a shower in between. Imagine this. And I could go on and on about what I've seen and learned, but just for instance, and I also learned some of them are not able to, they don't have smartphones, yeah? and they don't know how to express themselves in German or English, so it's really hard to start this conversation. So the app per se I learned for street work or street prostitution or aiding the word prostitution with street sex work, whatever, is Ohlala or any pepper. There doesn't make sense. Their job is the point of sale, so to say, is right there on the streets. So I didn't come up with a technical solution for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe if people imagine this, maybe if the society, it's just an idea, maybe if the society really finds what he or she is looking for, maybe there's no need for this particular space anymore. It's just an idea. It's happening to. What if everyone has a good sex life, a healthy one, an honest one?
And then last question to ask.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I haven't heard about this about Ohlala before this event. I was checking shortly. There are many platforms existing in this field, in this market. Yeah, so how are you planning to make this more well-known and more public, or did you plan any advertising or something like that?
So I'm not sure if there's anything out there like Ohlala. But for us, like companies for 3.5 years, we spent a year developing Ohlala. We had monthly finance rounds, we launched in New York City, bought back the company, and now we found the business model. This is as much as you can do in 3 years, negotiating 1.5. And we really wanted to get that product first and the business case ready. Yeah. The problem was, in our first approach, that we developed the product, we put it live in Germany, it went well, and we quickly scaled across the ocean and launched in New York City. And that's a little bit of a tricky startup decision, I have to say honestly, looking backwards, because I thought it's much easier to find a feasible business model. But when everything, you're scaling, you're hiring, you're like out of your mind, it's like not that you've done this 10 times before. And then on top, find a feasible business case, it's just one. And actually, to get back to your question on how to promote Ohlala, I think it's going to happen anyway, and I think that now that we have a proper good product, I think good products succeed, and we will do anything to market it. So we have been growing Ohlala organically. Like, this is just 100,000 users through word of mouth, and this already says, wow, I mean, it's a lot. And also we have, which is the fascinating thing about Ohlala, we have some 25,000 women in Germany, and this is actually big.
Okay, I'm gonna have to cut this off at some point because now things are kind of heating up, which is nice. But Pia is nice enough you're gonna stick around. So she'll be up here. You can go up and talk to her. There's beer, there's a terrace. We can all talk to each other. We do have to be out of here. Actually, you have like an hour, so never mind. But let's just give one last round of applause for Pia. Thank you so much. Have fun.